Hi. Recently, someone told me that when I die and face judgment, I'll find out that I am wrong to denounce Christianity and I will burn in hell. That's nothing new. Of course, all of us who have left our once beloved faith have probably been warned about our looming doom. But the conversation that came afterward is what I want to talk about. In response to this proclamation spoken to me, I said, I think I'll be fine. The person naturally said, I don't think you will. So I said, there are other religious documents. Other nations besides the Jews made up stories about their gods. We all know this, right? We understand that the Sumerians, Babylonians, Egyptians, Romans, Greeks, Hindus, and other people wrote about their religious beliefs. We here in the Western world just tend to put more stock in the anthology of writings provided us by the Jews and the Catholics. To the person I was talking to, I said, well, what about the Quran? Now, one would think that someone who had an interest in discussing the topic of religion with me would say, well, I've looked into the Quran, and I have reasons for not believing it to be inspired by God. Then I could have said, and I did the same with the Bible. We might have had a good discussion, and maybe one of us or both of us could have learned something. But do you know what the person's response was when I mentioned the Quran? 2 words. 2 dismissive words. Oh, shoot. That was it. Just a flippant, unconcerned, oh, shoot. As if the religious writings of everybody besides Jews and Christians aren't even worth talking about. There are approximately 7.8 billion people in the world. Of that, nearly 8 billion people, only about 2.4 billion are Christians. That means that 2/3 of the world do not adhere to the teachings of the New Testament. 2/3 of us feel the same way about that collection of writings as Christians feel about all the other religious documents in the world, besides the Old Testament. Yet Christians think for some strange reason that the documents they adhere to came straight out of heaven. And that is despite the fact that those writings are contradictory, inconsistent, morally bankrupt, and unverifiable. Then Christians just ignore the thoughts and beliefs of others as they would a belief in unicorns or the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus. I mean, it's truly bizarre. Christians reject the religious writings of others with a wave of the hand as ridiculous and as worth no more than legends or fairy tales. They don't grant any kind of credence to religious documents that aren't in the manuscripts that the Israelites wrote and edited for hundreds of years, and the Catholic Church pilfered through, put sloppily together, edited again and again, and the Protestant churches also edited to suit themselves. What's funny about this is that the Jewish writings the Christians stole were also pilfered. Much of what these documents say came from other people. Dr. Isaac M. Wise noted regarding the ancient Hebrews, they adopted forms, terms, ideas, and myths of all nations with whom they came in contact. And like the Greeks, in their way, cast them all in a peculiar Jewish mode. The Jewish Talmud states, for instance, that the names for angels, Gabriel, Michael, etc., came from Babylon. Ernst von Bunsen wrote, there is no trace of the doctrine of angels in the Hebrew scriptures composed or written before the exile. The Old Testament canon was not closed until the 10th century CE, which is, of course, long after Jesus supposedly lived on the earth. This means that these writings could be added to, altered, rearranged, made up, or perhaps even if the Pentateuch was not based on Plato's laws, as some suggest, it might have been changed drastically to reflect Plato's thinking. The New Testament, likewise, was not canonized early on, but only at the Council of Rome in 382 CE, if even then. This was accomplished by the authority of the Catholic Church, meaning that the document came to us through and by the Catholic Church. It is they who determine truth for the Christian world. And again, the document could be added to up to the point, or even longer, up to that point, or even longer if the church chose to do so. Therefore, any prophecies Jesus needed to fulfill regarding Israel could be added later. Church Father Justin Martyr, who wrote in the middle of the 2nd century, never mentioned Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John in his extant writings. Many early Christian writers, Clement of Rome, Hermas, Polycarp, Ignatius, Barnabas, also didn't mention the gospel writers. Bronson Keeler stated that the Gospel of John was not heard of till about the year 180 A.D. In fact, the first mention of this gospel is by Irenaeus, who lived in around 177 to 202 CE. And based on the evidence available, Irenaeus was most likely its author. The Catholic Encyclopedia notes that Pope Clement I, around 97 CE, didn't quote from any of the Gospels or mention the authors. No Gospel was referred to until about 185 CE, being first mentioned by Irenaeus in his book 2, chapter 16. This explains why Justin Martyr and others apparently never heard of the Gospels. Burton L. Mack wrote, "When the rabbis turned their backs on the Jewish scriptures in Greek translation, they left behind a large body of Jewish literature produced during the Hellenistic period. These writings were part of Jewish literature thought to be unhelpful or dangerous by the early rabbis. When it survived, because Christians continued to read it, and I'm still quoting, when toward the end of the 4th century CE, manuscripts began to be produced on the order of these lists, the Christian Old Testament finally can be recognized. The rabbis wanted to consign this literature to oblivion. By rejecting it, they bequeathed the legacy of Hellenistic Judaism to the Christians." Mack continued to say, "A quick count of the references to non-canonical Jewish literature in the writings of the New Testament adds up to about 400 entries. This means that early Christians were not dealing in sacred literature. They were involved in a new religious movement that had to construct its mythology with borrowed ingredients. They combed through the Jewish scriptures this way and that, not because they thought these texts contained the Word of God, but because they were the literature of apparent culture. This literature, most of which was written during the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th centuries, documents the success of the shift in early Christian myth-making that took place at the turn of the 2nd century. The shift produced the notion of an apostolic period, a notion that eventually made it possible for the Christian church to imagine the first chapter of early Christian history as the assured foundation for its institutions and offices. It also had the effect of turning the disciples into heroes and creating a model for writing subsequent Christian history as a series of exemplars of the faith. And it had the effect of concentrating authority in texts." That's the end of the quote. Books written by anonymous writers at an anonymous time in history, that's what Christians base their lives on, used to judge and condemn others, build temples and statues to honor, and are willing to die for. Most Christians don't know all of this history. They take the Bible as truth without so much as a thought. But they do understand that plenty of other religious writings are out there. They simply refuse even to look at them, to discover what they say or whether they might have any kind of merit. On the other hand, the writings they adhere to are considered gospel truth, not to be denied or disobeyed in any shape, form, or fashion. And they expect everybody else to follow suit or be condemned. And the rest of us, we're left to defend ourselves against their crazy documents. We're left to study their manuscripts, figure out what they mean, find the contradictions and inconsistencies and cruelties and point them out. Not that it matters one iota to most Christians that their beloved manuscripts are fraught with contradictions, inconsistencies, and cruelties. We have to put more time and effort into knowing and understanding their religious writings than they do. Oh, and most Christians pretend that their beloved books are perfectly written and easy to understand. They pretend that even a fool could follow their books without getting confused. Everything contained in their books, the massacres, the slavery, the theft, the incest, the baby murders, it's absolutely lovely and just what a good and loving God would require and condone. That's their thinking. Well, you know what? Why don't we do what they do? Why don't we just start saying, oh, shoot. Why do we allow them to feel that their crazy writings somehow hold truth or importance or beauty or wisdom that the writings of others do not and can be laughed at? Maybe we need to start saying, oh, shoot, ourselves every once in a while. Your God got angry because the ignorant people he made figured out how to determine what is good and what is evil on their own? Oh, shoot. Your God created a big bad devil and other devils and demons and familiar spirits so he'd have somebody to fight with and be entertained by? Oh, shoot. Your God wanted men to cut off a piece of their genitals to prove they loved him, and so he wouldn't kill them. Oh, shoot. The aroma of burning animal flesh made your God feel a little better, so again he wouldn't kill you. Oh, shoot. Your God mated with a human girl to produce a son so he could have that son murdered because that was the most glorious and amazing feat he could think of. Oh, shoot. We all know that if Christians read any of the foolishness in a book, this foolishness that I just quoted, in a book, or that I just said, in a book other than the ones they cling to, they'd be laughing and saying, oh, shoot. We know this to be true. And you know what? Christians know it too. They do. Oh, shoot. Or maybe this time I should say, oh, snap. Christians, let me quickly say that despite the many times I have said, oh, shoot, I'm happy to consider your thinking and your ideas and your presentations of the writings of others. Why don't you do the decent thing and return the favor? If not about the other writings, about what we as people who don't believe any of these writings say. We have thoughts too, just like those people who wrote that stuff did. Why not do the decent thing here? Again, we might be able to come to some sort of agreement. Maybe by dismissing all the ancient writings, but whatever. Or at least show some mutual respect. It can happen. I know, because in the same week that I heard, oh, shoot, I experienced a deep, kind, and loving discussion of religious ideas with someone who doesn't agree with me. This honest person had the integrity to talk calmly and without the need to push her views on me. We discussed the Bible and religion for a long time, without either of us becoming upset or offended or put upon. That's because she and I respect each other and love each other, and also we both know that our own thinking is not the final say. At least not for anyone except ourselves. Despite the fact that you're a Christian, you can choose to be a decent person and stop pretending you know things you can't possibly know. And especially stop condemning people to burn on a blazing barbecue pit while you stand back and applaud and approve. You can do this, and you should. It's the only honest way to be. I'm happy to discuss the merits of the anthology called the Holy Bible, or any other religious books with honorable people who are honest and admit that they simply trust that the book is inspired without any real evidence of that. But if you as a Christian want to pretend you have knowledge that the rest of us don't have that proves your book to be from a God while other religious writings can be cast aside without so much as a thought with an oh shoot, I'll do the same with yours. Thank you all for watching, and thanks to my new patron, Larry Lundgren. Bye.